Hello, this is Robert Rickover at Body Learning, and today my guest is Gal Ben Or, who is an Alexander Technique teacher in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, Israel. He's been teaching the Alexander Technique for pretty close to 25 years now, and he has somewhat specialized in working with children, adolescents, and parents. He is the founder and director of the Mashal Association, which was established in 1998 for parents of children who have been helped by the Alexander Technique. He has taught in Jerusalem Municipal Kindergarten. He has also taught at the Alexander Technique at the Keshem School. And he also works with, he's also a writing instructor, and he has recently written a book about his work working with children with the Alexander Technique, and he's looking for a publisher. So if anyone wants to contact him about that, I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you. Gal, welcome to the show today.
Hello, Robert.
Gal, could you begin by giving our listeners a very short description of the Alexander Technique?
Well, I'll do my best, Robert. Basically, what Alexander found through his research was a certain um, way that we were supposed to be working with our body, and it's a natural laws that we are supposed to be working, and what he saw that because of the way our lifestyle, the way we live, the furniture, computer, cars, and things like that, we tend to lose these laws and forget them. And we produce conditions that create um, problems, backaches, stiff necks, and all kinds of other problems. And what a teacher of the Alexander Technique tries to do is to relearn or teach his students how to use themselves properly.
Hmm. So, in a sense, it's a restorative technique, would you say? Sort of
Yes,
bring you back to some basic organizing structure that you had, but perhaps have inadvertently learned to interfere with because of the stresses of life, that sort of thing. Would that be a fair description from your point of view?
yes. But when working with children, especially young children,
Mm-hmm.
it's giving them the assurance that what they do and the way they do it is right. Because unless we have a problem, an organic problem or an accident, then we are born perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need is not to lose it. So if we're working with young children, it's not a relearning, it's more of an affirming of what is, just telling them this is okay.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get interested in working with children as a specialty?
Well, it wasn't my idea. It was the children that came to me. Actually, I just got a telephone call from a mother that tried to find an Alexander teacher, and after having three or four refuses of teachers that didn't have any experience, came to me. And at that time, I didn't have any experience, and I just said, "Well, listen, let's try. Maybe we can do something." And this is how it started, and it worked amazingly good.
Mm-hmm.
And then just another one came, and then another one, and the word spread, and it just became
Mm-hmm.
it just became that way.
Right, right. Now, when you described the Alexander technique, it sort of sounded like it was something more for adults who had developed these harmful habits of posture and movement. And from what you said, when you're working with children, you see your job is affirming that what they are doing is okay. So what exactly are you helping them with? I guess that's what I think our listener might want to understand. In other words,
Well,
if they're okay now, why would they need Alexander lessons?
because their adult surroundings and especially their parents
Uh huh.
unfortunately show a bad example, and we and the children tend to copy and imitate what we see around us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so um, a young child needs to be supported in his natural way of using himself, of using his body. And that's one aspect. The other aspect is um, I'm talking in general. I don't want to be um, specifically critic towards someone, but in general, in schools and kindergartens, um, there's quite a lot of tension and stress, and even when we try not to, there is a kind of demand to be right and do things like they should and hold the pencil in the proper way and sit in a right manner. And there's a lot of orders and things they need to be doing in a certain way, and they're not being taught how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're just being told, do that. But
Mm-hmm.
the child doesn't know how to do that. And so an Alexander teacher would give the know-how of doing whatever it is. And I, at least the way I work, it's a dialogue between the teacher and the child, because the child has his rhythm, his way of understanding things, his way of learning, and a teacher must be very sensitive not to enforce his ideas, even if they're right ideas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, in terms of getting back a little bit to the difference between working with children and working with adults, is it that you see children as mm, while they have these stresses that are put on them by the schools or by their parents or whatever, imitating people around them, that they're more plastic in a way. Their minds are more plastic in terms of being able to um, uh, change some habits they may have picked up because those habits are not very deeply rooted at that point. Is that an essential difference, say, between children and adults from your point of view?
Well, that's one significant difference, and
Hmm.
I can think of two others. And the first one is they don't have many ideas about their habits.
Hmm. And you might
So
say preconceived ideas, let us say.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
working with adults, you have to sometimes work hard and for a long time just to get through these preconceived ideas and seeing whatever needs to be looked at, just
Right.
just in order
Right.
to see it. And with children, it's easier.
Hmm.
The other difference in is that because they're more flexible,
Hmm.
they will once they it, they will it will be easier for them to accept the right. So I don't like the word right, but the natural habits.
Hmm.
You see, because
Hmm.
we are creatures of habit. We can't all the time be conscious of what we do and how we do. We tend to adopt habits. Now, if we adopt the right habits, it will work positively for us. If we adopt bad habits, it'll do the other way. You see? So working with children is just at the point where they can adopt and at their level understand what is right and stick to that. So when they're older, it works for them. Am I clear with that?
Yes, yes. Now, I would assume that most of the children with whom you work you're working with them because their parents arranged it somehow. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely.
Now, so from the point of view of a parent listening to this podcast, what might be some reasons why it would be useful to explore having Alexander lessons for their child?
Wow, wow, wow. I have plenty of very, very good reasons.
But bearing in mind a parent who not necessarily all that familiar with the Alexander technique, maybe knows a little about it, what might they see in their child that would tell them maybe this Alexander technique process could be very helpful to my child?
Well, I would say general ways of speaking is that we all need to learn or adopt or understand or work with these principles. You see, it's not it's not a technique that Alexander developed and that we need to adopt to it. It this These are natural laws that we need to see them, understand them, and work with them. And so it fits all of us. And if we're talking about educating a child and preparing him for life, I would like my child to have the right understanding of how to use himself, how to use his body as a child and as an adult. It's basic information, basic education. I teach him how to write and read and mathematics and how to eat right and how to use his body according to the natural laws. And this is something that has been lost somewhere in the education and medical field.
And as an example of you use the term natural laws, would a natural law be something like it's a good idea to do things in a way with as little unnecessary tension as possible, that sort of thing?
Absolutely.
It would be a good idea to move using the joints and muscles that are best designed for that movement as opposed to others.
Absolutely.
That's what the kind of thing you mean by natural laws.
Absolutely.
So if I'm a parent and I have a small child, and as far as I can see, my small child doesn't seem to have any particular problems with playing and walking and studying and so on. What what might convince me that it's still worthwhile to at least explore something like the Alexander technique?
Well, I would tell them two things. First, to look at themselves and see if their back hurts, if they have knees problems, if they have all kinds of different aches or fatigues or things that they didn't have when they were young and came up at the age of 30, 35, 40, sometimes before that, sometimes after that, and at the same time to look at the adult world around them and see that, I don't know, 90, maybe more percent of Western world adults suffer from different back problems, for example. And the list
Mm-hmm.
is very long. And a lot of these problems, these whatever you call them, are at least some percentage because people don't know how to use their bodies according to its natural laws.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you take any machine and you don't work with the rules, it'll break.
So,
And
so
so
if you're a parent and say you have a 8 or 9 year old child and you as a parent have backache or stiff shoulders or stiff neck, that sort of thing, or your husband or wife does, or the people around your child does, then it might be worth thinking about whether your child is inadvertently picking up some of these habits that you have and that the other adults around you have, that while they may not show up very clearly in the child at this point, are likely down the road to be a problem for them. Is that kind
absolutely.
of the point you're making here? That even if you don't see anything amiss with your child, if you're modeling something that has led to problems, you can be pretty sure your child's going to pick up on that at some level.
Absolutely, Robert.
Yeah. And I mean that it's interesting because Alexander F. Matthias Alexander, who was the developer of this work,
Hmm.
in one of his books, he's talking about parents in England, where I think he was living at the time he was writing it, and he goes on about how parents, when they go to pick a nanny for their children,
Yes,
they just
yes,
find the cheapest one available,
absolutely.
and they don't pay any attention to, hey, does this person exhibiting habits of posture and movement that your kid is almost certain to pick up on, and if they're harmful, it's very, very likely to imitate them because small children do imitate the people around them. And as Alexander also added, they tend particularly to imitate the most bizarre stuff that people
Absolutely.
around them do. So
While you're
if
talking, I'm nodding with my head. I'm just
right.
nodding and saying
So
yes, yes,
if
yes.
you choose a nanny with a tight neck and stiff shoulders to hold your child and hang out with them for 8 or 10 hours a day, it's
Ye-
almost like you're prescribing some aspects of that for your child. I mean, that's
Absolutely,
putting it strongly, but
absolutely. But that's how it works.
that is
It,
how it works. And of course, once they get to school, they got all kinds of other adults to imitate, like teachers, and then of course coupled with the weird furniture situation. I don't know what it's like in Israel, but certainly in America,
Same as in the States.
school furniture it's got to be one of the worst things for children's development. So,
And adding to that, the tension and the stress and the effort
right,
in school life,
yes,
no
right,
wonder, no wonder, no wonder there's so many
right.
problems.
And certainly, if you're looking at a 4 or 5 or 6 year old kid and they seem to have really good movement patterns, and you could if you could fast forward another 5 or 6 years after they spent that extra time in school, it's very likely you're going to see some of the beginnings of some pretty harmful posture
Absolutely.
and movement patterns.
Abs absolutely.
Teenage slouch or whatever. I mean, you'll see that down the road. So,
Absolutely.
as a general rule, then, it, I mean, I guess it sounds a little self-serving for us to say that every parent should have their kids take Alexander lessons, but certainly it's something to consider. I guess is that maybe how you would look at it for a
I
parent to at least find out about the technique and what it's about, and maybe look into having having their child have some exposure to it?
I would put it this way. I think first, yes, it's a very good idea to learn a little bit about the Alexander technique. And once a parent understands what his child needs for life, he can go and look for it in other techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And if he can find it, oh, I lost you.
Oh,
Are you there?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay. If he can find it in some other profession, other technique,
Mm-hmm.
I have absolutely no problem about it.
So, for example, if he finds, say, a coach, an athletic coach, or a Tai Chi teacher, or someone who has very good use of their own body, a swimming teacher, that could be a very profound influence for the good on a small child as well.
Yes, but a parent needs to know and understand what a good use
Yes,
means. You
right.
see, and the second thing is that the the Alexander technique teacher is focused on the use of the self,
Mm-hmm.
and a swimming teacher will be focused on swimming. It is very important to swim correctly, but not necessarily will it help sitting on a chair.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
see, and the same with all the other professions that you mentioned. It is
Right.
very important, but we want the child to have the right understanding in life, not only in that special
Right. Right.
branch.
Hmm. No, I totally agree with that. One of my teachers, Marjorie Barstow, used to say that it's a big mistake to assume that someone who's teaching a particular skill, such as swimming or piano or whatever, is also going to be an expert in coordination.
Absolutely.
That's asking too much. But on the other hand, if you are able to judge, and if you have some skill at judging the overall quality of your child's coach or teacher, the overall quality of their movement, it would certainly pay to go with one that was not tightening their neck all the time,
Absolutely.
for example.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
yeah, so well, I think Gal, this might be a good time to bring this podcast to a close. Did you have anything that you wanted to add before we come to an end?
Well, I think one important thing I would like to say to the parents is that they should I advise them to take responsibility and not give the system outside uh, too much
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
force on their children and learn the subjects, whether it's swimming or using the body properly. Learn the subject, be involved, ask questions,
Mm-hmm.
and once you understand better, then you can make the right decisions.
I would agree totally with that. You want to you definitely want to be involved, and I would think in many cases, if you're thinking about have your child having Alexander lessons, it might be a good idea for you as a parent to have a few first, so you
Perfect,
have some idea what it is you're asking your child to do.
perfect.
Yeah. Um, okay. Well, I think on that note, it would be a good time to bring the podcast to an end. My guest today has been Gal Ben Or, who has been an Alexander teacher for about 25 years. He works in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, Israel, and he has specialized in working with children, adolescents, and their parents. He has also written a book on this topic, which he's looking for a publisher for. So contact him. We'll put contact information for him by the interview. If you're in Jerusalem or Tel Aviv and what we're talking about has appeal to you, you can contact him. And if you live anywhere else in the world, we will put a link to a site that will enable you to find a teacher basically anywhere in the world. Gal, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Robert. It's been a pleasure talking to you.